G'day folks, Trog here. Let's talk about asynchronous trade, or as some people like to call it, PvP trade. There's been something occurring at the start of the league that if you're not aware of, I'll give you a quick little rundown on. Essentially, there's a strategy where people are using the new asynchronous trade, or the merchant that you can automatically sell items through, as a form of minesweeper game. What I mean by that is they will list a group of items all at similar reasonable prices, or sometimes quite cheap bargain prices, and then mix a couple of items through there that are wildly expensive. So you might get 28 of them all for 5 chaos, and maybe 2 out of the group for 5 divine, or something along those lines. Particularly in cases where they undervalue all the rest of the items, it causes a rush of people into the hideout, and everyone is initially there for that one cheap item that they searched in the website, but then they see the full stash has all of these other items that they want. So they go madly clicking through, almost like seagulls to chips, and then that is when the game of Minesweeper begins. If any one of the unlucky seagulls steps on one of the overpriced items, they've now purchased it and the seller has found some profit. There are also cases where all of the prices are reasonably priced and the seller is relying on your tired eyes after a 24-hour session to fumble your way into deep regret. In this video, I'll show you some strategies on how to stop this happening to you, or at least reduce some of the risk. And after that, I'll show you how you can even prey on those that continue to use these strategies. I should note that earlier today, GGG has added a notification system. So if you enter an area and select the same item listed at a price that is different to the item that you initially came into the area looking for, there will be a little pop-up to confirm that you actually want to make the purchase, and that's your extra chance to see that it's been listed for 5 divine instead of 5 chaos. But if there's a group of the same item all listed for the same price, and it is the price that you want, it won't give you that notification. Now, this should help with the issue a great deal, but there is some space for human error. If you go into an area searching for one item, then you get real excited when you see a bunch of other things that you really need. Or if your mouse hiccups a little bit and you click on the item next door to the one that you want, the strategies I'll go over here should help alleviate some of the consequences. Not zero consequences, but less. Also, I'm almost certain that the mine layers will attempt to adapt and overcome this new hurdle. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is what I would describe as the most important takeaway from this whole video, and that is hiding the currency that you don't want to spend from the trade site. So if you accidentally click on something you didn't mean to, the website will assume that you don't have the money to purchase it, and you won't. So what I mean by that is if you are about to go and make a whole bunch of purchases through the asynchronous trade, I recommend you take out whatever your most valuable currency is. So in this case, we'll take out a divine, maybe 100 chaos-ish. Yeah, that'll do. Leaving behind in this main folder whatever you're prepared to potentially lose or whatever you expect to spend. So what we'll do here is turn off our currency affinity on our normal stash and drop our currency into some other folder. The most important thing about this other folder is that it does not have the currency affinity on it. It could have a different other random affinity, but it cannot have the currency affinity. Now, I recommend using this exact process of just removing the affinity. You don't need to add the affinity to this one to get it to auto store in there as long as you're selecting it. And this will mean that if you do go to somebody's base, let's use the example of this minesweeper here. If you go to their base and you have no affinities selected in your stash, all of your currency... that didn't act as expected. Alright, that was strange. I think the lesson I learnt was affinities are weird sometimes. I recommend turning this one back on with 0 things in it. If you have something in there and then you turn it off, it'll remember that it was still in there. I don't really understand. Turn it back on and don't have anything on this one. And that will ensure that when you go to somebody's hideout and they've made a bunch of mines, it will say that you have no currency to spend in that area. And if you try to click on anything, it will not work. I should be very cautious about this. Now keep in mind, this is also the same system that your crafting benches use. So if you were to then go and try and craft something on one of your items, the system believes that you don't have any. It can't see your cash. Now for myself, I'm personally using a second currency page. This one I had purchased in previous leagues for reasons. I definitely needed it, but hypothetically, if you have or you choose to spend $7.50 USD to get a second one, you can make it look neater. Don't judge my financial decisions. I need it. Or you could also just convert all of your currency into the one currency type to save space. So now let's pop a little bit of currency back in our main stash. Actually, just in case I misclick something, let's just risk 20. Now in these examples, I am searching for people that are trying to sell dunes maps for 1 divine. So if I was to go into this map and click on something I didn't go there looking for, so I went there looking for a dunes map priced at 1 divine by the website's understanding. If I click on something else that is a different price to that, even if it's lower, like 1 chaos, it'll give me this prompt. This item's price differs from the one you initially traveled to this shop for. Okay or cancel. So you say, well, that was a bit of a red flag. Maybe I'll cancel that and double check what item I looked at. And that could be the red flag that it's priced for a divine, or maybe it is cheaper, who knows? But you just want to double check the item. Now, really fleshing that out, if you were to go in there looking for a dunes map at 1 divine or 1 chaos, and you go click on anything else that's not a dunes map, the notification system won't work. It won't give you a warning. You can't just go in there looking for 1 chaos items or something like that and expect it to give you a warning every time it's not 1 chaos. So your safety mechanism for that is to not allow the currency to be there to be spent. Now you can mess this up if you go into the stash of the other person and deliberately open up your currency tab to go through and look at all of your savings. For whatever reason, you might choose to do that. If you go back into Faustus to look at items, it will recognize that the currency is there now and it will let you spend it. So don't do that. Now, if you aren't sure on which currencies you should be protecting or which ones are in danger, the way to see which ones can be listed for sale is go into your own merchant and just have a look at the drop down list of what you could potentially list it for. So my picks of the bunch would be Mirrors of Calandra, if you happen to be so blessed, Divine Orbs, Chaos Orbs, Exalted Orbs, particularly if they increase in price. Or I guess if people get really weird glass blowers and gem cutters, I don't know. They're about the same as Chaos anyway, but mainly those top 4: Chaos, Divine, Exalted, Mirrors. I'd recommend protecting at least them. Now, since I put the most valuable piece of information at the start, I would love it if you'd toss me some serotonin in the form of likes, comments, and/or subscriptions. Now let's carry on. Now let's talk about some ways to prey on people that are still using this tactic after the update. And at this stage, I'd also like to give a massive shout out to one of my Twitch chatters, Raining Pain SC, who honestly came up with a lot of this idea. It has been the main brain behind a lot of the REGEX troubleshooting that we've done. So cheers, Raining Pain, you're a weapon. Now, going back to one of our live examples, when you go into somebody's hideout, you'll have a text box down here that says highlight items, and it's got a little info button next to it. Now, the main important line in here is the 3rd dot point that says regular expressions are supported. I'm going to be honest, I never knew this information dot was here until I made this video either. PoE players, myself included, don't read. It also gives you some of the basics of the information that I'm about to delve, I guess, a bit more deeply into now. Now, this text box will allow up to 250 characters to be entered into it, so it can be quite a long and complex string if you need it to be. Now, a regular expression or a regex in simple terms is just, I guess, a coding language. It's generally extra symbols you can add to a line of text to control what either does get highlighted and what gets kind of grayed out or dulled. So it's not impacting your ability to click on anything, but it's at least showing you at a glance the things you want to and don't want to see. So I'll copy and paste an example regex that I'm working on at the moment here. We'll flesh it out in just a second. Don't worry about not being able to see it all, but this is kind of what it looks like. So everything in here that is a dunes map with a bunch of specific parameters will show up, and anything that is a mine will also show up. So you can see at a glance, all of these will be dunes maps. These could be normal, rare, or magic. I've specified not corrupted, but otherwise all just one chaos. This will also block it if they're 11 chaos, 111 chaos, 228 chaos, like anything that is, actually I've set the range to be between 1 and 3 chaos in this example. So it could be up to 3 chaos, but anything above that, it won't display. So let's look at a breakdown of the regex, or the string of text, and the different components of it, maybe the parts that you can adapt to whatever items that you're looking to buy in bulk. So this is the regex in its entirety, and I'll break down each kind of component one at a time just to simplify it. So obviously the first part, dunes, it's the name of the map. Any item that has the word dunes somewhere in it will show up, provided it matches all the rest of the string. So if there's flavor text at the bottom that says this axe was crafted in the flames of something dunes, and it meets all the rest of the requirements in the rest of the string, then it would also show up as well as my dunes maps. But it was also have to have the phrase map tier 16 in it, which is the next point. So quotation marks around it means that it needs to have this set of letters and spaces and symbols in this exact order somewhere in it, which conveniently would rule out an axe made in the mountains of some place in the flavor text. Moving on down a little bit, this is probably the more complicated looking part of the string. Actually, it definitely is. Now, as far as I know, the quotation marks are what is making it respect the space and the chaos. The brackets make it a roll range, and I honestly have no idea about the /b's, but they help, and that's all I need to know. Now, the second point here is very important, and that is that this exact layout will only work for numbers up to, or a range, up to 1 to 9. Once the number gets bigger than that, the formula gets more complex. You have to put lines in between your first digits, so your tens, and then a line, and then your digits, and then it gets a lot more messier. So I'd encourage you looking into regexes in much more detail if you want to make a number of 10 or higher. Or chuck a comment in the video and I might be motivated to do the thinking for you on that one specifically. Now, there are some currencies that are not formatted as you would expect them to be. One example I've found is cartographer's chisels. So this is quite map related. And the way that I found out what needs to go into the regex is by copying and pasting the item. So you have to copy and paste it from the sale page to somewhere. If it's, let's say it's something that's not highlighting, but you want it to, or the opposite, highlighting but you don't want it to. This should show all of the words that would be searchable in this item. So it's got the flavor text that it would be referencing. It's got map tier 16 like we wanted. It's got June's map. You could look for specific rarities or even item classes of items. So any of this stuff is essentially what the regex is searching for. So initially when I started, I was really confused because I was trying to write out cartographers, but cartographers doesn't appear anywhere in this item. So for those that haven't seen before, if you highlight over an item, hold Control, tap C, and then click on somewhere else, Notepad, wherever you want to read it from. Control V, so that was C for Charlie to copy, V for Victor to paste. Disregard, that didn't work the first time. Second time's a charm. Control C, Control V. Oh, I'm... Alright, so what's happening right now? I'm not actually in the game. I'm in bloody Notepad. So don't do that. Click on somewhere in the game. Control C. Then go back to your Notepad. And then Control V. Goddamn tiny brain. But anyway, you'll see that this one has got all the same details, but it's got a different price. So that's how you can look for different or more complex items should you want. Now, the last little bit of the code is random things that you don't want to see. So if you whack an exclamation mark in front of something, you can add in different things that you don't want to see. If you don't want to see corrupted items, don't want to see fractured items, once again, that word does have to appear somewhere in the control paste of the item. So then scrolling back to the top to make sense of it all, June's map tier 16, rolling between 1 and 3, followed by a space and then chaos. So you could copy this, put whatever currency that you want in there, whatever number between 1 and 9, or whatever range between 1 and 9 in there, followed by whatever specific words you don't want. Now, a thought that just came to my mind, I'm not certain if this works if you just do the 1 digit. Yeah, okay. So it does work if you put a single digit in. I'm not certain if this blocks 11s though. So to find out, we're going to go find somebody that is minesweeping with 11 chaos June's maps, and we can test it. So we're going to search for a June's map. We want it to be exactly tier 16, no higher, no lower. I think there's a unique map, so we're going to say any non-unique, and we're going to change it to exactly chaos orb 1111, make a wish. And we found one. Oh, this one is corrupted though. Scratch that. Go back. Also not corrupted. Or fractured. Alright, let's give this one here a little cracky crack. Not a cracky crack. Alright, it does indeed block it out. This one has a whole bunch of good examples for me. So it's still blocking out all of our divines. It does block out 111111111. So we can't see any of those. So it can be a single digit, it can be a range, whatever floats your boat, makes your vessel buoyant. Now let's talk about how I use the trade website to essentially track down or follow people that are trying to do this tactic still and deliberately target them to make profit from. So the first goal is to find some sort of relatively low priced, that's why the between 1 to 9 ratio kind of works so well, is because people are buying those items in such a bulk amount. There's a higher chance of you misclicking one of them. Generally, people aren't mass purchasing items for 40 chaos each and things like that. So you want to find one of those that seems to just have these weird bulk sales every now and then. So like when you look on TFT, the normal going rate might be 15 chaos or 10 chaos or 20 chaos or something like that if you get things in bulk. But every now and then you'll just see one up for like 20 of them up for 5 chaos. That's a good sign that that is a market that is still getting targeted by the Minesweeper gamers. I'm trying to give them some name that isn't miner because it feels so easy to misinterpret. Minesweeper players, it just doesn't flow. Please give me better ideas in the comments, please. But anyway, you find your item that you're going to target. For this example, we're going to stick with dunes because I've got the regex already set up for it. What I would do is I don't search for the price that I would want. I search for the price that they would be baiting instead. So these guys will likely be selling for 1 chaos orb or 1 or 2 cartographer's chisels. So then they would be wanting to bait and lay mines of 1 divine orb, I would assume. I'm sticking everything still the same as what I just searched. So still map tier 16, not fractured, not corrupted, dunes map, any non-unique, and we'll search for that. And then I would activate a live search. And now you'd sit here waiting. So maybe you could be doing some of the farm or crafting or something like that while you wait, and you just have that hanging out. And now whoever posts next, you would assume that they're going to put their divine one in first because they don't want to accidentally load it up with free ones or cheap ones. People come in and take them. So normally they'll put the divine in first, and I'll actually get the notification a little bit early then. So as I'm loading in, sometimes they'll even still be filling the stash with their bargain items. I put in my regex and I can see everything that is a mine and everything that is a bargain. I've already got my divines hidden in a different stash, so even if I do misclick and I stuff up, then I'm only really risking whatever I'm prepared to. So 200 or 300 chaos is reasonable for me at the moment. For you it might be 50 chaos, for you it might be 10 divine if you're a bit of a baller, who knows. But we sit here and wait until this pops. We're waiting for those instant buyouts, and when it eventually does, we will dive in. Now in hindsight, I probably would have covered up my clock for this one just so we can't quite see how much time is going to pass while I wait, but maybe this is a good sign as well, so we can actually see kind of the long game that this can be in some instances. It's not going to be super rapid in all cases. Actually, disregard that. I've just considered I don't actually need it to be exactly 1 divine. I'm okay with it being any divine. It doesn't have to be exactly 1. I take it back. Let's go again. Bigger range, better search. Alright, so that took 2 or 3 minutes for some to pop up. So we're going to jump on in to killer pads, and we'll get all of these ones. These aren't even bargains for 2 chaos, but regardless, we've still blocked out our bait ones. Now you can sell dunes on TFT in bulk of 300 maps for 2 to 3 chaos. So if you're getting them for 1 to 2 cartographer's chisels, maybe you can pay off your gold costs and make a little bit of profit out of it. What I would personally recommend is finding your own little craft to do somewhere in there. So do your own research. I'm not going to tell you mine. If you want to steal it off me, you'll have to come and watch my Twitch stream. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. This is a transactional relationship that we have. But anyway, I mean, that's the nuts and bolts of it. Hide your divines away and learn how to regex. Until next time, bye for now.